Black. I mean, we're back.
Yes, we are black.
Well, actually, I'm cocoa caramel with a pinch of cinnamon.
That's your flavor.
Yeah, it's not a lot of black going on here. But nevertheless, yeah. So, with that being said, um, we are in the topic. I'm hoping the brother, inshallah ta'ala, comes on. Man, it keeps dropping for some reason. Now I don't understand why, but it keeps dropping. I'm thinking of telling my son to get off the internet in the front room. I'm not sure. I should do that.
Tell him.
Nah, I don't know, man. It's gonna keep dropping. It keeps dropping. You know, perhaps this topic is serious. Ooh. Okay, back again. So inshallah, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, from what I've heard/read, very little about it. Controversy about whether it should be taught or not. Well, what is it? And I know you'll explain that.
Well, who was talking about that? Was it Muslims, non-Muslims, white, black? Who was talking about should it be taught?
I'm going to say first, all of the above. Muslims are always late to the game anyway on such matters. Their deen first and foremost. But educators, in some instances, forced upon the school systems. What is it? It's almost like explaining away what this country has done. African Americans, slaves, and the Native Americans. It's like a gaslighting, just trying to gloss over the history of the country. They want to rewrite and just explain it away from what I understand. I know you have, further on that, but and try to get them to understand. I don't know that they'll actually get to what actually happened, the really facts of things. They'll just try to politicize it, just say, well, the country needed to do this, manifest destiny, and all that kind of stuff, But go ahead with what you've got.
Well, Brother Black Mind, the link is still there. So if you can, whenever it allows you to pop in, go ahead and pop in. I think it cut off 4 times already. I think my count is 4.
Yeah.
4 times we lost connection already. So I'm going to try to just struggle through it. I think it's important. Yeah.
We'll just go through
Yeah, he says constant pauses.
Okay.
Pause. Anyway. So as they define critical race theory, they say it's a cross-disciplinary intellectual. See, let's listen to that. A cross-disciplinary intellectual, okay, intellectual, which means that it is extending from the minds of men. Okay, extending from the minds of men. Who caused the problem in the first place? Men.
Yes.
Right? Men. They caused the problem. This racial issue. They caused the problem. We know Iblis. We know Iblis, Shaitan, original Shaitan, stuff like that. We know that, but man has perpetuated and,
carried it on.
Carried
it forward.
So they say it's a cross-disciplinary intellectual and social movement, okay, of civil rights. Now, civil rights is a problem because civil rights does not address anything holistically. It addresses it in pockets. You have the Latin. I've got his name. Oh man, I forgot
the
activist. Yeah, the activist.
Chavez.
Chavez. For the Latin group, you had the Dr. Kings or whatever for the black people and African Americans, ex-slaves, descendants of slaves, and then you had David Duke for white people. I don't know. Anyway, so you had all these different. Everything is in fractions, okay? Factions and fractions. The thing about it, civil rights doesn't solve anything. When Malcolm X went to Africa, he sat with Africans and he's like, man, y'all heard about what was happening to us over here, right? They said, yeah. They say, why didn't you all help? They told Malcolm X, they said, you all said it was a civil rights struggle. Y'all called it civil rights. And by Catholic law, if it's civil rights, you can't interfere. At one time, America said Taiwan versus China was a civil affair. But now Biden just said that he will go to war against China if they harm Taiwan. Okay? Now, they told Saddam. Saddam says, I'm finna address Kuwait for cross-drilling. Bad enough, y'all made that country, the southern tip, highly oil-rich tip of Iraq. Then Saddam said, I'm finna address them. Bush Sr. said, that's a civil affair.
Until
No, it was never a civil affair.
Yeah.
They wanted him to go in so they can go in as
Okay.
peacekeepers because Kuwait didn't want any U.S. military bases in their country. Okay, so again, it's always the boogeyman thing. So anytime you call something civil rights, you're limiting it so much. Okay, he said the link is not recognized. It is either expired or invalid. I'm gonna send it again, inshallah ta'ala. I'll send it again. Let me see, what am I doing? I'll send it again, but I think it's the same link, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll send it again. Copy link. Hopefully it's different. Let me see if it's different. 47. Yeah, it look like the same link.
Maybe it's because it broke.
It looked like the same link.
Probably because the connection broke.
Try this one again, inshallah ta'ala. Try this one again.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, so this was the issue about this civil thing. So they say it's a social movement of civil rights scholars. Okay, so the best scholar they have is not scholarly at all because they don't have enlightened mind.
Right.
They don't have. We talked about that. We don't have enlightened mind.
Yeah.
So and activists who seek to examine the intersection of race, society, and the law in the United States. Now we know this is systematic racism. It's a systematic racism. So when you got systematic racism, it's not for you to study the effects of racism. You can do all that study all you want to.
It's flawed from the beginning.
The problem is the system.
It's flawed from the beginning. Yep, go ahead.
The system. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to address the system, I have, like I mentioned before, an alternative to fall back upon, then you won't do any good for the people by having critical race theory discussion. So anyway, it continues. It says, and to challenge mainstream. Okay, so now we're going to go mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice. Okay, so it says to challenge mainstream. Now the word challenge is look at this thing tomorrow. Remind me later. What is this thing? Software. Anyway, so it says to challenge. Now again, we talked about how do you challenge, right? How do you challenge without an alternative? Subhanallah. You challenge without an alternative. So we got Brother Black Mind. Assalamu alaikum, Yaqi.
Walaikum salam. How do I sound?
Okay, mashallah, you're good. You're good. I'm trying to add you to the left or the right. It won't add you at all. Let me see. So,
Oh, sorry about
add
that.
you, but we can hear you. So mashallah, that's good. Yeah, it won't add you.
Okay, alhamdulillah. To people looking at the video, I'll just seem like a disembodied voice. I'm used to that, though.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Black Man. This is Assadullah. How you doing, Aki?
Walaikum salam, Assad. How's everything?
Alhamdulillah, good. We're working through it here. Glad to have you. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad it's not.
Oh, gladly, sir. Thank you all for having me.
You see, I'm clicking plus signs and everything. It won't let you in. So address that issue. The issue I'm talking about. It came from civil rights scholars. Okay, and civil rights has its own niche. Okay, it's very limited. Okay, and they say to challenge the mainstream. So what are these civil rights scholars challenging exactly, and what are they offering as alternative?
It seems like, for the most part, it was a trick to call it civil rights because many people see civil as being internal, whereas we understood civil to mean basic and humane, the way that you treat someone civilly, as an example. And of course, that was designed so that I'm sure that was an intentional trick on someone's part so that other people in other countries would hear this and think, okay, well, civil would mean that it's internal. So let's not interfere because we're not invited in this. But in all honesty, it just appears that you have some conservatives who are just simply put outraged when they have to face any sort of inconvenience in life and somebody else might get ahead of them. But they don't believe that other people have a right to be outraged by the same things. They're just simply not capable, much like the shaitan has intended. They're simply not capable of understanding the equality of everybody else. And they're when they get angry, they can't even be reminded of it, which is another satanic trait that they have. So that's why we saw what we saw on January 6th. But this is actually the religion. We have to remember this is the religion of Western Europe and its diaspora. It's not Christianity, it's white supremacy. And that's why they have these views that they have, but they don't tolerate um, the same viewpoints and the same self determination in anybody else. There was a time when, remember how COINTELPRO even got to be a rumor before it was declassified. COINTELPRO was in fact an FBI operation. And I believe it was in Chicago that some white anti-war students demonstrated, and they stormed the FBI field office in Chicago. They weren't shot down. And as a matter of fact, the agents vacated the building and they left a lot of papers out on their desk, which is how it was that COINTELPRO became just a rumor. Then it was declassified later. But it was a rumor for decades because of this. Because some of the students that stormed it said, we saw the papers. They were there on their desk.
They called
So
it
the question is,
conspiracy
why would
theory.
they called it? It was probably it was the first time I ever heard anything called a conspiracy
Yep.
theory. But it turns out to have not been a theory. It was real. Witnesses were not lying about this. But the question becomes, why were these kids not shot down? Well, the reason is they weren't black. I mean, not just them not being black. They were in fact white, and that's because it's in their religion that they're on top. And so, religiously speaking, they don't kill each other. They don't hold each other accountable. And that you see it extend into other things to date, such as January 6th. That was a continuation. Just a few years ago, we were talking about videos in which whites were shooting at cops and waving guns around and being taken in alive, and in which black folks could be unarmed or legally armed and disclosing that they were armed, and they were shot down, and officers were being acquitted for this. That's because, again, this goes into their religion. We keep thinking that it's Christianity, and they think it's Christianity. None of us understands that their religion is actually white supremacy.
Exactly, exactly. The uh, Brother Jawad made a point. How he talked about how Malcolm X talked about uh, how the right and the left are the same, and he said he also addressed how whites perpetuated the narrative that Africans were inferior and have didn't have any impact on society. So we understood that, and he also mentioned a good point. He said, "Is the LG HD TV 4K UHD the new colonial project?" Again, David Walsh uh, came out with "What Is a Woman." You can see him right here. David Walsh came out with a documentary called "What Is a Woman." That documentary is very, very good. For the parts I've seen of it, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I follow his podcast or his streaming service, whatever, and he asking questions. What is a woman really causes them great trouble because they can't define it. They say everybody's different. So now nobody's a woman. So how do you have a women's march, a women's parade, stuff like that? So anyway, with that being said, uh, David Walsh is addressing the issue, and one thing he came out with was very telling. I even posted it. He said that for every child they can get to quote unquote transition and mutilate their genitals and take puberty blockers and things like that. He say it's an average of $1.3 million that goes to surgeons and big pharma.
Money, man.
That's capitalism. Okay,
So,
Rasmalia. That's capitalism. They they stand to make an average of 1.3 million for every single child that transitions and mutilates their genitals. So the gig is up. Walaikum salam, Sister Khadija. And the gig is up. It's a money thing. These people are willing to go to hell to make a dollar. They're willing to go to hell to make a dollar.
yeah, I'm not shocked that they will do that if they can. They're going to find a way. It's more like this. They're going to find a way to make money off of just about anything. But what they're willing to do is that which is going to send them to hell because these decisions, oftentimes, these decisions are made. They're made based on their immorality. When you start looking at the pattern, you realize that the only thing they have in common usually is harm to people, immorality, and double standards, either based on religion, nationality, or race. But there's nothing else that really you can use to draw the line in between them all. Because see, they could make money by looking after people's health too. That's also an industry. It's just that they make these decisions based on what's wrong. So that tells you who's really in charge. because who else has an interest in human beings making decisions based on their immorality? There's only one party we know of that has that particular interest. And has the ability to whisper this into people. So, in all honesty, that seems to be the case. That it's more so just they make these decisions, and then somebody's going to find a way to make money out of it. And of course, they're willing to fund certain things too, because each of these kids that goes and does this, has this assignment surgery or takes puberty blockers, their parents don't have 1.3 million. The kids don't have 1.3 million. Somebody's willing to pay for this. Somebody's willing to foot the bill or pass it on to us one way or another.
quote
So
unquote taxpayers.
they're just not quote unquote, yes, sir, taxpayers, and maybe even some. And there may be someone else that's willing to join the taxpayers in this as well. The point is that they're willing to do it because it's wrong. The money will even they'll even figure a way to have the money come out later on. But as I stated, yeah, white supremacy is in fact their religion, and so that's why we saw it. I'm going to give something to substantiate why I say that. Denmark, as a Scandinavian country, used to be quite liberal at one point. Now, when Syrians, because when in Scandinavia, Syrians are not white, and let alone Iraqis, definitely not. But while Syrians may be white amongst the Muslims, in Scandinavia, they're not considered white. Many Southern Europeans are not considered white in Scandinavia. So when they started going into to Denmark, eventually the Danes got sick and tired of this and said, stop them at the border and take everything of jewelry, every piece of jewelry they have, to offset the cost of taking them in. They have nowhere to go anyway, so let's do that. And so this became a law, according to a Danish brother that kept me posted. Now, fast forward to the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, and now you've got Ukrainians running away, and some of them are going to Denmark. The same Danes began to say, because they are white,
Yeah.
let's make this law an exception for them, and let's not have them have to give up everything of jewelry and everything of value to offset the cost of taking them in. Danish politicians began taking some of them into their private residences.
Oh yeah.
So the Danes are becoming more openly pro-white, anti-non-white. They're becoming more openly white supremacists. Now understand, they are becoming, well, they're beginning to voice disagreement with the Swedes, because the Swedes are still more liberal. And they're beginning to say to the Swedes, you're not racist enough in so many words. And now the Swedes are becoming more pro-church, pro-Protestant or pro-Catholic, anti-Muslim, anti-melanin. So this is in fact a part of their religion. And this goes back to something my pops taught me a while back. And then I think he actually pointed out Malcolm X's autobiography when he substantiated this. But what my dad told me is that usually when you have a majority white nation like what you had in Scandinavia, several of them, about the time that the population, the non-white population, gets to 14 to 15%, they begin to change, and they're no longer as welcoming because you're not cute anymore. You're now too big. Your population is too big, and that's when they begin to fear that their population is going to be permanently changed. So that's when they revert back to they will revert back to what their religion is at some point. And so what we're seeing now, and I'm sorry for making a long sermon about it, but what we're seeing when they say get over it is they're pretty much saying that this is supposed to happen to you because that's life for you, in word. That's not life for us because we've changed the world to make life not this way for us. So if the red light stops me at the last second going to a job interview, that's an outrage. If I have to wait behind you protesting in traffic, that's an outrage. And I should accelerate the car and run you all over and kill you all because how dare you block traffic because some of you died at the hands of cops armed or unarmed.
Well,
That's what they're going. That's
they
what.
passed the law. They passed a protest law that says anyone that rolls over a protester will not be charged. And they did this in
Yep.
retrospect after that white woman was killed that was marching for Black Lives Matter.
Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte. They killed her, but they saw her brother Matthew. They killed her, and in retrospect, they passed that law that anyone that kills a protester would not be charged. So, but I think his charge was that guy that ran her over was his charge was grandfathered in. So that tells you how much they hate, because even when their own kind, with good intentions, are trying to do something good, it doesn't, it still doesn't go well for them. But I'm gonna mention that Muhammad Sallallahu said in the Khutbah al Hujjah, we know this khutbah, the Khutbah al Hujjah, the farewell khutbah. He said Khutbah al Wada. He said that there's no superiority of white over black or black over white. You know what I'm saying? So we know this very well. And there's one hadith of Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu who reported that Muhammad stated that, "Behold, verily you have no virtue over one with white skin or black skin, except by favor of righteousness." So taqwa has always been the standard for being better. Okay, the belief and the concepts have always been the standard for being the better individual. Okay, guided versus non-guided, believer versus non-believer. That was always the standard, and we could not rest on that alone, but we have to actually practice the belief that we claim. Not just to sit on, a better mentality like the Bani Israel did. They thought they were better, and even today they think that they're better by virtue of them being, what they claim to be. So, nevertheless, the source is Musnad of Ahmed, okay, 21,407. But nevertheless, with this being said, Muhammad said there's no superiority, and what eats them up is that they perpetuated that they were superior. Remember, three-fifths human and all that type of stuff. And,
that was in the Constitution.
Yeah. So, but what happened was that they even came up with other things to scare white women from wanting to dip. To dip. Like a strawberry in the chocolate. They said that his male member is so huge, it's going to hurt you. So, and that actually intrigued them more to want to know and want to, So a lot of things they did when Hitler got up and walked out, because Jesse Owens
smashed.
Because he bred all these superior Germans, and he gave them steroids even, and they still got smoked. You know what I'm saying? They still got smoked by a person that was a descendant of slaves who had no honor in his own country. Didn't go to the White House after he defeated, Germany and stuff like that in the Olympics. So anyway, so all this being said, this is the reality. But as Muslim, we have to understand that we are above, as a Muslim that happen to be black, as I'll say,
right.
I'm above every black non-Muslim. And they can only supersede me if they too embrace Islam and be righteous. That's the only way they're going to exceed me. It's not hard to exceed me in deen, but you have to embrace Islam and then walk in that way. And there's no, from the president on down, there's no white kafir that's better than me, because my virtue is based upon taqwa. Okay? And that's the way the Muslims have to look at it. So now they come up with this critical race theory with these civil rights scholars. Let's get into it. Let's understand it. Let's understand the systematic. It's the system that's the problem. Nobody wants to address the system. Not Muslims and not kuffar. Muslims trying to find their niche in this system. Okay? Because the Indian immigrant is not considered black. The Pakistani immigrant is not considered black. The Arab immigrant is not considered black. They can go and get a loan where someone that was born and raised with no reparations could not. Okay? Could not. They think that they are better by that virtue, and they take on the same racist mentality. And this is where the conundrum happens, because Muslims are being stained by the stain of kufr. They're being stained by the stain of kufr, because they're coming in and looking down on their Muslim brother who has maybe even more virtue, more deen, better concepts, and better practice of Islam than they do. I've seen their daughter. I've seen more than I should have seen.
What we may have to do is, as a matter of fact, I would bet money that we have to do this, because we're dealing with a lot of Muslims who believe that they are superior to us by virtue of them not being black. I would say that although the superiority is based on taqwa, we need to start calling the faith of racist Muslims into question. Put it on them to prove that they're actually still Muslim if they entertain any resemblance of a notion or semblance of a notion that they're somehow better than us. Because we got Muslims sitting up saying to us, well, why don't you just get over it? But they're not going to get over the things that have happened in their own countries. So we may have to call their faith into question because of the hypocrisy. See, white supremacy is in fact a satanic religion. I would say the same for black supremacy, except it doesn't exist, certainly not as a religion. I can't even sit up and say that the NOI really succeeded in spreading a notion of black supremacy, because in the end, most of them wound up becoming actual Muslims like you and me and Asadullah. And those in the panel. So most of them wound up saying, okay, this is actually a different religion from what was revealed 1400 years ago to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to the Anbiya before him, alayhum salam. And so Malcolm was actually followed. He was literally followed more than Elijah Poole was, because we know the transition Malcolm made. And so many others have made that same transition. And so now the Sunni, just amongst African Americans, the Sunni vastly outnumber even the NOI. I can't say that they succeeded in spreading a notion of black supremacy. So that's why I'm not going to sit up and say the same thing about a notion of black supremacy, even though it is un-Islamic. I'm not saying that it's the same threat, because it's not. Nobody in the world is walking around trying to buy skin darkeners in large numbers outside of Europe. And even the Europeans are about to stop that mess because of the rise in white nationalism, or rather white internationalism, which we really saw in the news around 2016 and 2017 with the campaign and the election of Trump. So we got to start. I mean, we as Muslims have to be at the forefront of going against this, because this is, in fact, the idol of the time. It's not even Israel, to be honest. It's white supremacy. And Israel does what they do because of white supremacy. They're supported by who they're supported by because of white supremacy. They'll do it to the Palestinians what they don't do to each other because of white supremacy. Ethiopian Jews get mistreated the way they do because of white supremacy. And so we have to understand that it is, in fact, a satanic religion, that Satan is the one that spread this around. And he did this before before electronic media, let alone social media. Before the internet, he was doing this. And that's the only way you would explain why in a climate like Malaysia and Indonesia, which is on the equator, that people would be willing to use skin bleach, just like they would be in the Caribbean, just like they would be on the continent itself. They're willing to use skin bleach, but what they actually may need sometimes is a darkener to increase the melanin count to protect them from the UV radiation. They're actually willing to take health risk just to be paler in complexion. And this is an international phenomenon. And people say that it's colonization. Well, that might have something to do with skin bleach being available, but the preference for a pale complexion is not colonization. That was there before. And so we have to understand Shaitan has his motives, and we underestimate Shaitan and the Shayateen, and therefore we sleep on certain things. So now the world actually believes that this preference for paler complexion is a human instinct. And that's indirectly, that's a way of blaspheming against the law and calling him a racist. Wa'udhu billahi min dhalik. But Muslims have fallen for that. So you got Muslims walking around thinking that even though they don't hate darker skinned people and wouldn't harm them the way that America does, they still think that the preference in marriage for lighter complexion is not just personal, but that it is human, that it is an instinct, like Allah put that in us. And so they're walking around calling Allah this white supremacist racist, which is blasphemy. And we need to start checking them and calling them into question. And we need to start saying to them, okay, you love to say there's no superior or inferior except in taqwa. You're a racist. You lacking in taqwa. How are you my moral equal when I'm not a racist?
Exactly. Well, I don't want because we may differ on the white supremacy being at the top of the issue, because what we saw with whites themselves, there was discrimination, racism, slavery amongst themselves. We saw with Africans, there was racism, what colorism, whatever you want to call it, discrimination, slavery within themselves. The issue that we have to understand is that it is the issue of it's not only taqwa, but we're talking about kufr. Okay, kufr is the issue. Kufr is the issue. and we can say white superiority or white supremacy is uh, like tantamount. It's at the apex of things, but above that is kufr. It's kufr and shirk and batil. Okay, before that, and I know that for a fact because white supremacy is systematic. I mean not symptomatic. Excuse me. It's symptomatic. That's what it is. It's not the issue. Okay, it is not the issue because among Muslims we don't have the white supremacy issue. Muslims have it, but among Muslims, we don't have it. Meaning that uh, when a white person becomes a Muslim, which Sister Danielle became Muslim yesterday, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Oh, wow.
Inshallah, she'll be on
Alhamdulillah.
next week's show. Uh, she she becomes Muslim. Okay, I don't feel her to be superior to me. I told her, I said, you're the best person in the room right now. I say, sincerely, you become Muslim. Allah forgives all your sins, take all your good deeds, keep them on your scale of good deeds, and He takes the weight of any bad you've done, turn the weight of it to good, and put that on your scale. I say, so you're the best person in the room right now. I say, keep your position as the best person. I didn't tell her because you're a white woman, privileged, whatever, never got to worry about traffic stops, that you're better. It was by virtue of her believing and practicing the deen. Now, what I noticed with some people with the MSA, Muslim MAS, I call them MAS. I always call them Kiss MAS. MAS, Muslim American Society, Kiss MAS says this white brother became Muslim. He was just Muslim like 10 seconds. Oh, you are the next coming of the this. You really need you. You're the future of Islam. And he came to us and was like, man, something strange just happened. I said, what? He said, man, these Arab dudes was all around me telling me about how I'm the second coming of Jesus or something. And he was like, I ain't understand none of that. What are they talking about? I say, look, man, they suffer from this inferiority complex. And anytime somebody white becomes Muslim, they think that they can be a mouthpiece to carry their agenda. You know, they think they can be a mouthpiece to carry their agenda. So that's what they see you as. They see you as some type of savior, some type of Messiah. And I said, it's because of their ignorance. They don't understand the deen. Neither, if you knew them, you know that they don't really practice the deen. You know what I'm saying? And this is what you suffer. So they suffer from that too. The Pakistani Muslim father would marry his Pakistani Muslim daughter to a white kafir before she can marry a black Muslim. This is facts. Oh, you don't
I
know
actually
all
know of one like
Pakistanis. I ain't
that.
gotta know all Pakistanis. When I was a blood, I ain't have to know all Crips. You know what I'm saying? I still
Right.
pull out
Well,
the pistol.
the funny thing is, I actually know someone like that. I taught her about a decade ago back in the States, and she was a middle schooler. Her father is quite politically active. Ironically, he was active along with quite a few African Americans, Muslim and not, when it came to things involving racial injustice. But I've seen her on Facebook, and she's gone from one white disbelieving boyfriend to the next white disbelieving boyfriend, or no evidence that he's Muslim, I should say. And the father is not, he doesn't seem to have any sort of envy about this. And the thing is, he's not, I know he's not, he wouldn't have a problem with her marrying someone that's African American as long as he's Muslim. The issue is her, it's she herself. And she doesn't even have a concept of racial hatred, but she still understands the notion of white privilege, whether she wants to admit it or not. And so therefore she's going to look for them, and she's going to pass up black folks that are Muslim. But here's the thing. See, and I don't know Danielle's origin, but congratulations to her. And if Danielle, if you can hear me, salam alaikum, and I wish you the best in the future. May Allah make this journey easy for you. But the thing is that, see, when she became Muslim, whatever her origin is, you know how to be fair to people. And people who know you know this about you. I can see this from an ocean and a continent away. I saw this before you and I ever met because I saw some of your videos. And I could listen to you speak, and I could pick up on the fact that, yeah, you were going to be fair to people. But when I was talking about white supremacy, I'm with you in that. I'm not saying it is the definition of kufr. What I'm getting at is that it is today's leading idol of kufr. So just you've had different idols at different times. I mean, at one point, the fear of the Mongols was that which was threatening the tawhid of the Muslims. A lot of Muslims feared the Mongols more than they feared Allah until really until one day when some of them were hiding in a room during an invasion, and one of them looked in the room. One of the Mongols looked in and said, "Y'all wait here. I'm going to get another weapon." He told them this because they gotten so used to just taking over so easily. And they said, "He just sat up here and looked at us hiding. He's the only one, and he's going to come back by himself." And he told us this. Okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and give it a shot. They argued, they debated, but he came back into the room with a weapon, and they just ganged up on him because now they were cornered. They ganged up on him and beat him, took his weapon, and then from there on, they lost their fear, and this spread. And that was one of the turning points even before the Battle of Ain Jalut, where they got turned back. The point I'm making is that we've had different idols of kufr at different times, and right now this seems to be, if it's not the leading one, then it's certainly one of the main ones. Because number one, it's actually very subconscious. A lot of people aren't aware that they've got it, and that's why these guys surrounded this white fella that became Muslim. And notice the white guy that became Muslim came to you to try to sort it out because he didn't understand it, and you knew what it was, and you told him. So when they say that we all become equal upon taking the Shahada, they don't realize how correct they are in saying that, because the white guy came to you and asked you, and you told him the truth, and the two of you got along fine. But he saw the inferiority complex in the Arabs that came to him and told him or that he was the second coming of something. So the ironic thing is that when whites in the West accept Islam, they usually don't want an equal, they don't want a better or superior treatment. And they may not even be aware that they're getting it for the first several weeks or months. But then they realize, usually when they start to see an African American accept Islam, or even a Latin American accept Islam and get a less than lukewarm reception, that they start saying, what the hell is going on? And that's usually, you notice that they lose white privilege amongst whites when they accept Islam. That's something you can ask a Caucasian who became Muslim about. And they'll tell you, yeah, the white privilege that they would have had is gone now. They accepted Islam. White folks, I mean the Western white diaspora, the Western European diaspora, understands what Islam is in that regard. They understand, okay, they're saying that we're all equal and we don't have any privilege, and I don't want to be treated the same as them. So they treat these Muslims as though they're now renegades and apostates. That's why you accept Islam, you meet somebody white, and they say it's quaint and it's cute, but then when they meet one of their own racially that accepted Islam and became our brother or sister, they treat them like a traitor. They treat them like an apostate, because in a sense, that's exactly what happened. And that's because somewhere down the line in the subconscious mind, they realize that what they're on is a type of religion, and somebody white accepting Islam has forsaken that white supremacist religion. And that's also why it is that, and trust me, I'm living in Saudi, I'm dealing with Gulf Arabs, and they have that subconscious white supremacy. They cannot conceive why a cop would shoot an unarmed black person. They don't get that part. That violence is to their credit, that violence that's inhumane. They don't dehumanize black folks, but even they oftentimes don't understand why, if you are black and famous and rich and you're a man, why would you marry a black woman? Let alone if you're not a black man, why would you marry a black woman? And they don't count me as black, visibly speaking. They know that I am when they know me, but visibly speaking, they don't know I'm black when they first see me as a stranger. And they don't hate me, again. But if they see me with my wife, sometimes they look and they stare. It's curiosity. It's not anger or anything, but they're trying to figure out, why would a non-black man marry a black woman, even if she's cute? It's so ingrained that you have to challenge them on that. And they call us slaves like it's our name. The better ones are the worst about that. They call us Abid, like that's the normal description for black people. And so when you challenge them on it, they actually
call me maintenance.
Yeah, you see that's so there you go. You see how, and in Hinduism, we already know that that's shirk, so we're not.
I call them all
shocked.
Hindus. So pardon me. I call them all Hindus.
You know, there's a comedian in the UK that did that too. There's a comedian in the UK that if a Muslim from the subcontinent is anti-black, he calls them Bani Ganesh.
Wow.
He's famous for that.
Well, you know,
and now his wife.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's it. That's it. He got it from his wife, actually, a Pakistani Muslima, taught him that they got this from Hinduism. So he called them Bani Ganesh. If you're Muslim, subcontinental, you're anti-black, then he calls you Bani Ganesh just to insult them. He did the same thing you did.
Ganesh is the idol, right? Is
Yep,
that the
exactly.
elephant?
He's called. I think it
Ganesh
is,
is
but
the
in any
elephant,
case,
right? So
you know what? Yeah, yes, Ganesh is the elephant god. That's right. They're elephant god. So their concept is the same.
you know
Yes.
the this caused Islam caused the problem in India because the I don't know if they call it the Dali or whatever. These were the untouchables, the people on the lower rung of society. They became Muslim and were given a self-esteem from Allah Ta'ala that they did not possess before, and knew they were better than even the Brahma, Hindu, Indian, right? And they kind of
Yep.
upset that caste system of society, and they really hated Islam for that. How dare Islam give these people a dignity after we belittled them and brought them low? So but anyway, I want to move to this next point. Then I want to go into critical race theory and how the da'i, or the one that carries the dawah, which should be all Muslims really, sees it. Okay, so I want to mention that an Arab could come over here because of systematic racism. An Arab can come over here and get a loan that a descendant of slaves couldn't. Okay, with no credit, except their Arabism, and they're known to pay back because they're going to start a business that pumps poison into the society and things like that, and so that money is going to come back tenfold. A Desi, Pakistani, Indian, whatever, could come over and get the loan and start a business, so on and so forth. Now, the problem that I have with this is that you have a convenience store, and not all of them do. I can't say that. You have a convenience store, okay, and you're putting out alcohol, which is the worst drug ever. Worse than crack, worse than heroin, worse than powder cocaine, and so on and so forth. Matter of fact, I want to mention this real quick. Reagan is the biggest drug dealer in the history of the world, okay? Reagan. That makes his wife a trap hoe. And I know she's dead, so she's a dead hoe, okay? So anyway, Nancy Reagan, the one built like an Aleph, I don't know what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever
Yeah.
have kids, man?
Yeah.
Ew. Anyway,
I'm sure.
so yeah, it'd be disgusting even to imagine him having kids. Must have been long distance in vitro fertilization.
Oh man, you
They
were
say
killing
she's so
them.
ugly you got to put her in the corner and impregnate with a slingshot. Anyway, I said that. But anyway, so with that being said,
You're killing me.
with that being said, these convenience store owners are running away these Latino and black and whatever people that are selling drugs in front of their stores, or soliciting, right? Get away, get away, get away, get away from my store, get from my store. Inside that store is worse than crack. It's called alcohol. Inside that store is lottery, Macyr. Inside that store is khanzir, which is really the least of their sin, selling pork. When you compare it to alcohol and gambling, okay? But anyway, so you got this crime that's permitted by the Kufr government, okay? And then you got this dude outside trying to get it how he lived. He's seen as a lowlife, but the dude inside that drives away in his Toyota 4Runner or Sequoia or whatever, and goes to his nice palatial estate in a gated community because he's making $25,000 a month. Selling poison to the very community that comes back and shoots them, or robs them or whatever. This disparity, bro. How did the crack dealer on the corner become worse than you? You worse than him.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're Muslim inside that store.
Disconnect. Seriously.
The harm you're doing is worse than the crack dealer.
Yeah.
More children are going to go to bed hungry
Yes.
because of what you're selling in that store, even though you do sell food. Okay, more children are going to be beaten. More spouses are going to get into fights based on what I seen crack being people together. I seen two crackheads. I love you. I love you too. You never done that with alcohol. So this is the problem that I have. Is how we don't even have the Islamic point of view anymore. That brother, because he give a bunch of money to the masjid, they should call it Masjid al-Khamr. You know, Masjid Maysir, Masjid Khanzir. Because it's where the money comes from.
Yeah.
If they ain't getting it from a bank, so call it Masjid al-Riba. I've seen it.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I had to leave. Yeah, that's one thing that drove me out of the States. It was not just the discrimination against Muslims and Black folks, and I'm very happy to be both. But it was also because when you're in the masajid, I mean, every time two people have an argument in a masjid and both of them are administrators, now they need to take up a collection for a new masjid, but the collections aren't going to be enough to actually build a structure that's going to last or buy one that's going to last and be up to code. So if they don't beg every single Friday for donations, which still won't cover it, then somebody's got to donate some alcohol money, some pork money, or they got to take a loan from. It's always like that. And so after a while, you just say, you know what, I'm sick of this. And when I got here, alhamdulillah, when I got here, one thing I can say is that the citizens didn't have to worry about that. Now, as for who actually does pay, you and I can have a conversation about that offline one day, inshallah. But it's not on the residents to have to try to pay for a new masjid every time somebody has an argument. Yeah. And there are enough of them here to where most of they're within walking distance of most homes here.
Yeah.
So that was the good thing. But when it came down to it, you see, we tend to think in the States that, well, you know what, I'm going to skip that point. I'm going to go ahead and deal with what you and Mahdi Ahmed are saying. And what he's saying is that actually capitalism as a religion is the real idol. And what I'm going to point out is that white supremacy, of course, is going to do what it can to enrich whites and to impoverish other people. But then again, that's still a part of even the so-called religion of capitalism. I'm not against private property ownership. I'm not saying that. But capitalism as a religion, people have to understand this. That is that the nations that may not be white, but they're quasi-white or white adjacent, and then they begin to succeed, they do generally have, they tend to share an attitude that is anti-melanin, anti-black. They tend to share that. And you can see it in the United States. The Chinese were treated just like black folks up until the 1960s. Then what happened? Something specific happened. We protested, they didn't. And so then they were uplifted because they didn't protest, even though they were treated pretty much the same way black folks were, especially in the South. The same thing happened to Koreans when they began to go into the U.S. in large numbers. And I do mean South Koreans. They were pretty quick to distance themselves from the black population. Absolutely. They were ready to do it. It didn't take hardly anything. At one point, they looked down, the Chinese and the Koreans would look down on the Vietnamese, Laotians, and Cambodians and Thai. To a certain extent, they still do. But you'll notice the Vietnamese have moved up. And as they moved up, they've become more anti-black in their outlook. These two have coincided. I've sat back and watched it. And you've had about two of them, I think, that have actually gotten either arrested or they were on the news for saying some racist stuff. So that's actually what tends to happen. Within the states, a group moves up the so-called ladder, partially based on their attitude against black folks. That's when they're accepted and they're allowed to start earning and saving money, and they're just not as persecuted as much. I mean, the Italians went through that, the Irish went through that, and their acceptance was directly hinged upon them distancing themselves from us Negroes.
So I want to touch before I go on to this the next issue, the get over it issue. I want to touch that, but I want to touch this issue of as a da'i. I learned in halaqah, intense halaqah, that I'm not beholden to anyone's agenda. I'm not beholden to your structure. Okay? When Omar Suleiman wanted to go and protest injustices on the Mexican border, he held hands with LB HD TV 4K, USB. He held hands with them in some We Shall Overcome and some more Negro tunes and Kumbaya, my Lord. Okay? When they poured out libations, which is a pagan ritual, he too poured it out. He's supposed to be the Amir, the Imam of this event, because the lesbians were controlling the church side. He was controlling the so-called Muslim, I won't say Muslim, I say Muslim side. He saw young Muslims get in line and receive Ash Wednesdays,
Huh.
cross ash on the forehead. He watched this and didn't say anything. Okay, and they say, well, he made a mistake. No, it's not his mistake. Everybody from Yaqeen Academy, Yaqeen Institute, defended what he did. So it's not that you made a mistake. They defended what you did. He came out later and said, I made a mistake, I apologize. See, he apologized. No. All y'all apologize. The whole institution needs to apologize. And needs to be uprooted. It needs to take a backhoe over there and just dig that whole institution up. If it is a building.
They're not going to apologize.
But that's the point that I'm making. It's the support that you get behind that. See, he's not a da'i, okay? A da'i has its own structure. We have our own guidance. We have our own viewpoint of life. We don't follow behind anybody. So if someone says critical race theory should be taught in schools, I find a problem with those that said it should be taught. I find a problem with the way they say it should be taught, curriculum of how it should be taught. Yes, this society should be exposed as inherently racist every chance that we get. There's some instances just happened. I forgot it already. I started to write it down. But it's systematic racism everywhere you go around this country. You know what I'm saying? But what did Allah Ta'ala do? Okay? Allah Ta'ala says on Yom Qiyamah, the baby daughter who was buried alive will be asked, for what crime will you bury? So Allah Ta'ala pointed to ills in the society. Okay? He pointed to the ills in the society that were coming from the system, the kufr system. As we Muslims, we need to point to the ills too. But let's not use the ills as the issue. We shouldn't. Because we're going to get distracted. Because we're going to say stuff like a lot of black Muslims say, Muslims that happen to be black say, they say, we got to solve the black people problem first before we deal with the Arabs, before we deal with the Asians and with the this and the that. No, you ain't got to solve no black. Who Muhammad has no sooner even close to that. You know, Abu Bakr on his own accord, on his own accord, there was no adjuring or enforcing or directing for that. Okay, that's the point I'm making. And this is systematic. And yes, the ills hurt. You know, when I bust my finger or hit my elbow, it hurts there. You know, but I have to understand what is the source? What is the source of this thing being too close to my elbow? What is the source of me not paying attention while I'm hammering something? You know, I got to understand the source so I don't repeat that. You know, but I can't bust my finger with a hammer and then start marching on the street. Hammers are kafir. You know, this hammer superiority needs to stop. You know, I can't do that. And this is the problem that we have. The da'i, he's not going to pour out libations and watch Muslims do kufr. He's going to speak out. He goes, hey, look, man, this border idea was a bad idea. I almost became a lesbian. You know what I'm saying? So before I become a bulldagger, let's all pack it up and let's leave. You know, in our Muslim cars. You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly what should have happened. So critical race theory, when I heard the term, I didn't find a problem with the term. When I heard about the people that came up with it, not really a problem with that because they don't have a solution. But me as a Muslim, I'm not going to wholesale accept any kuffar. Okay? Now, if kuffar say, hey, let's go to the border and protest, you know, the discrimination, Mexicans and all this type of stuff, I'm going to say, man, we got a whole bunch of problems in the Ummah right now. We got a whole bunch of problems of Syrian refugees being treated like second-class citizens in Turkey, third-class citizens. You know what I'm saying? The Hajj can't even go to Hajj like they should freely be able to go. You know what I'm saying? Now that's, you know, the government's taking over that now. There's not going to be more travel agencies dealing with that. They have to go straight to the government. Now the price is going to go up even higher, bro. Like I said, I can go to dirty Europe for a tenth of what Hajj costs.
Yeah, you've been saying it.
For a tenth of what Hajj costs, I can go to dirty, filthy Europe where all the black dudes sound gay. Yeah. With that proper James Bond accent. Ooh.
I like James Bond.
That's just the accent.
I like him as a friend.
They could jump on us about that.
I like him as a friend. I'm just saying, man, it's a soft accent, bro. You know, but I'm just picking, man. Excuse me. Yeah. Anyway, so now I rambled enough. Let me move on to this. You want to say something on that real quick?
I've really not given Assad Allah a chance, and I'm sure he has experience that we don't. But so what I was going to say, I've forgotten, but it'll come back to me after Assad Allah takes his shot.
Assad Allah is too light skinned, man. We don't get
Hey, brother Black Man, in our group, he's accused me of being white. No, I have personally experienced, well, I'm going to give both sides. And I'll say this, alhamdulillah, Allah put me with Muslims who did not see me as a black man as I was coming into the match. This is in Lexington, Kentucky, okay? My
Yes, sir.
brother who took me under his wing, he was from Syria, and just came to love him dearly. I need to really get in touch with him. But what attracted me was the fact that these brothers were from England, and I was amazed at this, and it kind of points to what we're talking about tonight. This was a brother that was from Pakistan, but had the sharpest, hardest British accent that you'd ever want to hear, and that blew me away, But I began to understand how Islam was and is and should be. I met a brother from Kazakhstan. I got so excited. I was working at a newspaper at the time. I went and looked on the atlas and said, I've heard of the country. Where is it? It took me a minute, northwest of China. But anyway, 3 days after taking Shahada, a brother who happened to be from Palestine came up to me and very sternly said 3 times, he said, do not look at Islam. Do not look at the Muslims. Excuse me. Do not look at the Muslims. Look at Islam. He said it 3 times, and I understood what he meant. I just had not experienced the racism that we talk about amongst the Muslims. It wasn't until years later that, like we're talking about, I'd give salams to a brother who happened to be dark like me or blacker than me. He wouldn't return the salams. Now, not necessarily from the African continent. It'd be a brother of Arab descent. Yeah. And then I understood about the hadith, that the sin is on the Muslim who does not return the salams. I said to myself, I'll let them have that. I'll let them have it. So I understand, about all of this. We're just not, you always see me on this show doing this because Muslims aren't using their minds to think about what the topic is tonight, getting above, realizing that this is kufr. And like you said, brother, Black Mind, is from the shaitan. It's kufr. It's capitalism / white supremacy. And other groups are not taking advantage of it. We're behind the 8 ball. Seems like all the time, no matter what it is. We're always the last one. And then when we do, like this brother you just mentioned, he's just falling in. Yeah. Let me just join in, because a lot of us think that, well, let's try to get in with the system to try to change it. I don't know what it's going to take to make them realize it's going to fail. It's a man-made system. It's just going to fail.
Look, you have a better chance of changing LG HD TV dude straight from inside than you do from changing the system from inside. Once you get inside the system, somebody gonna be inside you. Yeah. They have parties like that at Bohemian Grove and stuff like that. They have parties like that. Really? This one young Republican guy, he ran for governor somewhere. Okay. He lost. Trump supported him. Trump endorsed him. He lost.
I think I remember that.
He's the one that came on TV and said, "Man, I've been invited to sex gatherings by these old Republican dudes." He said, "Y'all having a what?" He said, "Yeah, we're having a gathering. It's gonna be a sexual gathering." They invited this young Republican dude.
Did he go?
No, he said he didn't go.
Okay.
He went on TV and was talking about it openly.
Okay.
That's why he lost the election.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Right. He lost the election giving a go stuff like that. So you got a better chance of changing RuPaul from within. Don't throw up on me, please. You throw up that way. Okay?
I won't.
You got a better chance of changing RuPaul from within than you do changing the system from within. The system doesn't change from within.
Nope.
When you get within it, you become part of it.
Yep.
Whether you're building infrastructure, supporting the system, as far as voting and stuff like that, man, you're already in it.
It's just
might as well be prideful.
Joining right in with just falling in and just thinking we're gonna change it, and it's just. And then the next thing is this: what's going to be the next thing coming down the pike? These things are always like something new that comes up that does several things now, right? White supremacy capitalism. I think, Brother Black Man, you said at the top, it's a money issue. Well, no, you did. It's anything that's going to make money. Capitalism, white supremacy, the rights of anything and everything. What's the next thing that's going to come down the pipe?
When we say make money, also is to maintain.
Yeah, what's there? Yeah,
what's there? Okay. Mm-hmm. When you free slaves, mm-hmm. that they fed themselves basically, but you fed them, housed them, clothed them, mm-hmm. minimally, minusculely. Mm-hmm. I'm saying meagerly. Mm-hmm. You did this. Mm-hmm. Then they say, okay, well, y'all free. Bye. Right. You saying bye, you turn your back and start walking away from a property because you have to get off the property. Mm-hmm. You have to go down to the dirt road. Mm-hmm. So you turn your back to the house that you built. Mm-hmm. You're turning your back to the fields that you tilled. Okay?
For generations.
You're turning your back to the little child that you breastfed. Mm-hmm. I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you're turning your back to the horses that you broke mm-hmm. and trained and, you know, even the dog. You told the dog how to sit. You know, so now you got to leave the property mm-hmm. and that plantation is owned. Mm-hmm. That plantation was owned.
Labor was lost when that happened.
Well, see, that's the issue within itself. That's why when you say white supremacy, I'm not only superior because of my race, they say, right? But it's tied to capitalism. Why? Because if I say that, then I keep this. Mm-hmm. And you go. Mm-hmm. Get off my property. You're free now. Yeah. Free to do what? Black people have the same problem. I don't know if Mexicans are doing this. I'm sure they're doing that at a lesser rate. But when a child becomes 18, you got to get out my house. That sounds like single mom stuff. That don't sound like a father, you know. Mm-hmm. My children can stay with me till they're 28, 38, 48. As long as they ain't out there living like a Kafir, they could stay with me. Dad, I want to get married. I can't afford my own spot. Man, I'll build something for you. I'll build. You can have a back room. I go sleep on the floor in the front. I'm not going to put my kids out like slaves with no property, no this, no that. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. I'll go find somewhere to go, and you can have a house, son. You can have a house. I'm saying, because that's my responsibility to my kids. My life for theirs. I'm saying, now 18 is not a number for us. Where the hell we get that number from? Kafirs.
Yeah, this is Saturday.
You can go find a 33-year-old virgin in Morocco. I'm sure Saudi got a couple of them too, you know. But you can find a 33-year-old virgin in Morocco, and you couldn't find a 13-year-old one here. Barely. I was in middle school, bro.
And I'll say quickly,
I was
part of that, Brother Black Man. I'm not sure. Go ahead, brother.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
I realize it's about a 10-second delay, actually. It's about a 10-second delay. I think it's because of the Borgen and the internet connection. So I interrupted you guys accidentally. What I heard was a pause when I began speaking, and then I heard y'all pick up again. So I'm sorry about that.
No, it's not a problem.
No, I was just going to say quickly that I experienced what you just said. And I'll think of my family growing up. You know, my parents were educators. I lived a sheltered life. Okay, I just put that out there.
Dave Chappelle.
Yeah. Oldest brother was gone before I even grew up. Philadelphia. I'm in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Okay, oldest sister gone to Iowa. We moved. Second oldest sister stayed, got married. I'm 18. I'm in New York. 18, Chicago. Brother under me, New York, went to Columbus, went to Ohio State. Youngest brother from where we were living at the time. So that what you just said, a lot of blacks, that was the American dream. The parents, if they were just two-parent home, in my case, single-parent home, because parents divorced, taught up to grow up, get the education, 18. So that was the magic age. Out of here. So we were part of that, just what you just said.
Bro, look, explain something to you. It's Islam over Negroism, okay?
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah.
When I first saw the Ford Flex,
okay,
I like the square body design. I like the Jeep Cherokee square, but I like the square body design. It's
Okay.
bad on gas, no aerodynamics. I like the square body design.
Okay.
I always wanted a Ford Flex. I finally bought one. Okay? Between my son, my 17-year-old Wakil, and his mom, they burnt the engine out on his Mitsubishi Endeavor. Okay? They burnt the engine out. Didn't check. It was running hot. Cut off. They cut it back on. Kept riding, and the engine going, right? So now he's in my Ford Flex, riding to and fro. You know what I'm saying? Because he got his license, So he's riding to and fro, whatever, in my Ford Flex. Because that's my son.
Right.
I love him more than that car. You know what I'm saying? This is a mentality that we don't understand, that we raised them. We could raise them to a certain age.
Yeah.
But we still have a commitment to them because he's clueless. I'm glad he's not here right now because he's bigger than me. But he's clueless. The boy's clueless.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, he's clueless.
Yeah.
I still see where he needs dad.
Oh,
he's 17. When he turned 18, you think a light going to come on in his head?
No.
I would not put him out.
No.
Never.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put him out. I wouldn't put his nephew out, my nephew out that I don't have no blood with through marriage, right? I wouldn't put a stepchild out.
No.
Unless they were bringing Shaitan into the house. Now you and Shaitan gotta go.
Right, yeah.
I'm saying you and Shaitan, but I'm saying
that's all under the capitalist society that we live in. Grow up, get your education, go to college,
indoctrination.
Yes.
Indoctrination, not education.
Right. Well, miseducation, right? That's a whole other topic, maybe miseducation of not only the Negro, but the miseducation of the Muslim. But it's just ingrained, especially in the Black African American, to raise the kid and go out and make money on your own at 18. But alhamdulillah that you're doing what you're doing.
At least I got a skill I can pass down to them.
Alhamdulillah.
I could teach them electrical, plumbing, building. I could teach them how to build their own home. You know what I'm saying? All they got to do is find some property. I could teach them that.
Yep.
I could teach them how to go to Offer Up and wherever and buy scrap wood. And you'll have your house. It might take you a year to get all the stuff together, but you'll get it cheaper than Lowe's and Home Depot. You know what I'm saying? But I can teach them all that. But until I impart that knowledge to them, I can't blame them for not having it. But nevertheless, I want to move on. Now, Brother Black Mind, you understand the term goy. You understand that term? Goy?
Say the term again, please.
The term is goy. It comes from, it's the slang for goyim.
Okay, the singular for goyim.
Goyim, yes, brother.
So they would joke with each other.
Okay, yeah.
What are you doing? Washing dishes? What are you, goy? What are you doing? Garbage man? What are you, goy? That's considered beneath them. That's considered beneath them. And this is the Yahoo, right? That's considered beneath them to do goy work. Okay,
working with your hands.
They consider themselves white collar or. I almost said something. Better get in trouble. Anyway, so nevertheless, goy. You know what the acronym goy is? Get over it. Get over it. Goy is get over it.
Oh wow.
GOI. Okay.
Goy
means you can never enter heaven. You can never enter God's favor. God hates you. You could never become a believer. That's what goy means. We say kafir, and Muslims say, "Oh, don't say kafir." It makes me dry. Muslims don't want to say kafir. They lose their moisture.
Allah says kafir.
Kafir is a lighter term than goy. Goy means you can never enter paradise. You're not even worthy based on your station in life, your bloodline, your title, your belief, whatever. All of that falls under goy. You are min al khasirin, the perpetual. You can never change. You can never achieve anything. Okay. So when people say get over it, I hear goy.
Wow.
I hear goy.
So they believe that you can. That they believe that one of them could probably lose salvation. Based on behavior, but that we could never gain it, no matter how we behave and what we believe, and there's no kind of repentance for us, simply because of the way that Allah made us. That's what they're saying.
Well, based on blood.
So they have, in a sense, called Allah an oppressor.
Yeah, yeah.
That's their belief.
It's their belief.
Yeah.
That's why they don't do dawah. You know, they don't do dawah. And they say if you fall in love with one of our women and they are, silly enough to cohabitate with you, then any child you have will be Jewish. You know, but the Jewish men don't. They generally don't do that, and they don't give dawah. They don't want anybody to actually become Jewish. You know, this is part of their belief. I'm not saying
Gotta be born
I'm not
into
telling
it.
like Norm Macdonald would say. I'm not saying any tales out of school. I'm not telling any tales out of school.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, when it came to the Holocaust, okay, it was signed on September 10th, 1952. Entered into force. They enforced it on March 27th, 1953. According to the agreement, West Germany was to pay Israel for the cost of resettling so great a number of uprooted people, because they were fleeing Germany, right? Sounds familiar, right? Palestine. Anyway, so going to Jordan. People call themselves Jordanian, they're actually Palestinian today. That's how confused they are. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, resettling so great a number of uprooted and destitute Jewish refugees, and to compensate individual Jews, okay, via the Conference on Jewish Material Claims against Germany, okay? It means they were seeking reparations. That's what that big word means, reparations, okay, for losses in Jewish livelihood, sound like Palestine, and property, Palestine, resulting from Nazi persecution, okay? This is what happened, 1952, enforced in 1953, okay? As far as African Americans, goy, get over it. Get over it.
The Eagles, right? Great American rock band, got a song by that very name. Get over it.
But check it out though. I've talked to Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
They were not of the African American, post-slavery experiment.
Right.
They said, "Well, I think they should get it. They should use it as a crutch." I said, "Okay." They saw Roots. They saw Selma. They saw this documentary. The documentary. What's the documentary that the one that exposed the CIA for putting drugs?
Tuskegee Institute.
No. They didn't know about Tuskegee, but I'm saying this. What's that documentary? What's that documentary? So long-running documentary talks about from slavery all the way to now, to when Reagan put crack on the streets of California.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll think of it.
I want to think Eyes on the Prize. But
Eyes on the Prize. Eyes on the Prize. Okay. It's another one. It's Eyes on the Prize. Another one too. So we have this knowledge, right? Okay. He said he can't hear anything.
Oh, it dropped.
Okay. Jawad said he can hear. Maybe it's on
his end.
Did I mute you? I don't think I muted. No, I didn't mute you. So it's turned up.
Volume's up.
Okay. MK Ultra, that's another one, but there was another one too, similar to Eyes on the Prize.
Okay.
But nevertheless, this is what we have, right? Okay, you got all of this, and they say, get over it. See, it don't matter if you use it as a crutch. It becomes a mental crutch when you see 2022 video of a black couple with one child goes to an apartment complex and says, I would like an apartment, okay? I would like an apartment. And they go to the apartment, I would like an apartment, and the apartment said, we don't have any apartments open. Credit excellent. Then a white family comes in, husband, wife.
Come right
okay?
in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Husband, wife, white family comes in, bad credit, one child, or two children. Mm-hmm. Oh, you got an apartment for you.
Or the black realtor who was showing a house.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was stopped by police. I want to say this was in Michigan. And the police accosted him because they thought he was just somebody just hanging around, trying to snoop around, trying to break into the home. Almost in a Ahmaud Arbery situation. You know?
See, that's what I'm saying. It's there in plain sight, but they're told what? Get over it. Mm-hmm. They're told get over it. Now, when I got out of prison, they said, look, man, you're going to have an ex. What happened? They say, man, you've been in prison.